So my first guest, my first interviewee of my Touchpoints Marketing YouTube channel is Mark Wilde from Rubiqa. Hello, Mark.
Hello, Victoria. Okay.
Yeah, good, thank you. Now, it must be about 10 years or something since we met, isn't it?
It is. It's probably more than that. It's probably about 13 years. I think it's probably 2007, something like that, which is quite scary, isn't it, really?
So for anybody that doesn't know you, obviously you're an East Midlands-based business like myself, and
yeah,
and you run Rubiqa with Jeremy. So tell me about yourself and the business.
Well, Rubiqa is a creative agency. We specialise in graphic design, web design, brand design, animation. So it's quite a cross-section of services we offer. And what we try to say to people is we're very much business focused. So obviously we're a creative agency, and creativity goes, you know, that's something you expect. I mean, we're creative agency, so, you know, but what we try to do is we gear that creativity towards business focus, because at the end of the day, we are business owners, we understand how it works. So it's not, so I think that gives us an edge, the fact that it's all about results and about what the business is trying to achieve.
And so your specific role at Rubiqa is?
I'm creative director. So if a brief comes in, it will usually be me that will meet the client and speak to the client and find out what they want to achieve. And then part of the creative director's role is then to brief designers. Obviously, I work myself as well, which is very much a hands-on designer. I think that's the difference. We don't employ account handlers. We do everything. We work directly with the client, so there's no misunderstandings of, you are working with the creatives, come up with the concepts, present to client, and then backwards and forwards, and eventually, hopefully, we get something that that people love and works for them. That's the main thing, I think.
Which brings us neatly on to...
Absolutely, yes, that looks familiar.
My graphics, my logo, my identity. I love it. And this must be about 2 years ago that we made this.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Again, it goes quickly, doesn't it? But yes, it is. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So shall we talk about the process of making something like this from scratch?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think when you came to us, Vic, I think you already had. Did you do an identity yourself? Did you have something in place, didn't you?
I made something myself, and so it was a long. Well, it depended where it was, but on the website, it was a long graphic, and it was like a dusky pink colour. And at the time, I was called SME Touchpoints, and a lot of people would say to me, "What does SME Touchpoints mean?"
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, there can be quite a few people that have not come across, SME being small to medium enterprises, and a lot of people might not know that. So it kind of alienated a lot of people because they just didn't understand what it was. So I felt really passionate that what I do is over lots of different touch points for people with their marketing. But I don't think it was really doing me justice. And having known you, it kind of felt like, okay, this is the next step. I was at that point, I was probably a year or 2 years in to my marketing business. And I thought, you know what? I'm saying to people, you need to up your game on your logo and your identity. And I wasn't doing that myself. I kind of got something that was, when you read Lean Startup and things like that, you just got to make something that then is identifiable to then kind of get to that next level. And when I got to that next level, we kind of had that conversation, didn't we, about, okay, Vic needs some grown-up branding now.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think you're in a market that expected, exactly what you said, Vic, is that the market you were targeting expected more from this, from your visual identity. So I think when we had the meeting, I think that was one of the very first things you said is that you cover all these areas, hence why it's called Touchpoints. Yeah. You covered all these areas. And I think what was important, what we understood after speaking with you, is the fact that visually we had to show that you were covering, there's various sectors you were covering, and somehow that logo identity or the logo device in itself had to reflect that. Hence why we started with the sort of the shape of linking two things together, because about touch points, hence you've got exactly, yes. So it's about linking things together, coming together, bringing people together, and obviously working towards launching people or relaunching people as a success. So so obviously you've got the logo device there, which is the T, which I think, from what I remember, I'm sure we started that was a jaunty angle originally, I think, and I think we then rotated it. I think I could be wrong.
I'll dig out the notes and we can have them flashing up as we're
through
this, because I'll find them somewhere, and it'd be interesting to see that process we went through, because it's been a while since.
I was doing lots of sketchbooks, and it was all related to,
Yeah.
I think a lot of it related to sort of letter T, or again, it was all about the starting point was bringing things together, these two things together, touch points. So the brand identity, the extending identity, as you can see behind, which you can't see, you can see it a little bit behind you, is really showing all the, the areas, and it was using as an identity based on symbols of connections and growth, social, because that's all the things you cover, isn't it? I suppose that's, that's the thing.
If anybody can't read this from where they are, there's kind of different sections. So social media, pay-per-click, SEO, events and PR, customer loyalty. I won't go through them all, but it kind of brings together everything, and then they're kind of interlinked as a web, which is really
that's right. Yes, because it might be that a client doesn't necessarily want all of the service, but they might want this one that leads to another one. And so that was the thing. It was about a network, and it's also, of course, it's a network of people that people want to, and people know other people. So it's all kind of, so that's where that concept came from, and I think it works really well. And I think the colourway, I think we presented a few colourways here, and I was quite surprised. I really like that colourway, and I didn't. We had a conversation, and I said, I don't think Vic will go with that. I don't know what made me think that. I don't know, but it works really well, because it is a really strong palette that it's got, I think, and it works really nicely. I think,
And when it came through on email, I was actually in Italy on holiday at the time, and I remember seeing them on my phone, and I was getting all excited, because you get really excited at this point, don't you? Because it's it's getting there, and that it's it's the final stage.
We hope it gets to that point.
And when it came through, and in my room, and obviously being in Italy, and it was spring, and it was all these kind of aquas and blues in the room, and it was very white with all these hints of colour, and it just really solidified for me that this is the colour that I need to go for.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I find the sheet with all of them on, I'll make sure that that's overlaid as well, so people can.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And we'll have the sketchbook somewhere. I think somewhere in the studio they'll be there still.
That's great. So in terms of the process, it was really sitting down initially. I think we had a second face-to-face meeting as well, didn't we, to talk about your initial scamps of how it might look. Then there was some more tweaks, and then the colourways, and then we sent the final graphics over. So how long would you say, I don't remember, but how long would you say that took as a process from kind of brief to final assets?
It's probably, with that, it was probably 2 to 3 weeks. I think we did have several meetings, because part of the process for us is obviously initial client. We'll meet the client first, and at that point, after we met the client, we'll then write a brief for them to sign off. So at that point, everyone knows that we're all working from the same hymn sheet. Basically, everyone knows that what the clear goals are with it. So the client signs it off before we start anything. And then we might work, there might be a couple of days we'll work on some concepts. And at that point as well, a lot of our job, I think, and people don't realise this, I think, with designers, is a lot of our job is editing things down. Because if we came to you, for example, and showed you 30 different ideas, well, for a start, we haven't done our job properly, because we need to edit those ideas down. And I think you would just be, if you saw that, then you'd just be like, what on earth? Where do I go from here? It's too much.
Yeah.
So we're trying and focus on perhaps 2 to 3 concepts we think are really strong. I mean, obviously, the thing with us is we don't ever want to show a concept to the client that we don't like ourselves, because you can guarantee if we show 3 concepts and the third one we absolutely hate, but the first 2 we love, the client will pick the one we hate, and then it's just not. You just can't afford to do it. So we would rather show less. If we only thought 2 were really working for them, we'd only show them 2. There'd always be more than one. We'd never come just say, there you are, what do you think? There's always got to be some sort, because that's part of it. The client, we'd expect the client to be involved, and I think it's right. The client has to be involved, and that's where the turn and fro. So I think for yours, to answer your question, it's probably about, I think probably about 3 weeks. Obviously not 3 solid work, and it's backwards and forwards, and also with the creative work, we might spend a day on something, and then almost certainly we would park that for at least 24 hours and go back to it, because it's amazing when you see things, because you're so involved in it. And this is the thing, you get so involved in designing something, you don't realise, you can't see the wood for the trees, basically, because once you're in it, you need to step back and review it, and you might think, actually, that is awful, you know, and redo it, you know, and you have to, and that's part of the process. So when people say to us, you know, how good is it, you always have to allow for that, of course.
Yeah, and some, I guess, might take longer than that, because just the nature of, if people are, I mean, I think I'm pretty decisive.
Yes, yeah.
But I think, like, sometimes if people are a bit unsure, it could take a little longer as a process, couldn't it? So it's kind of around there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of people, you know, there will be clients that have research groups, obviously go to board. We might have to do several presentations to different levels of the business. So it might go all the way up to chief executive. We might have to do a meeting with them. So absolutely, the whole process can sometimes take months. It really depends on the client and obviously how quickly they want to implement it. And you know, so that all comes into it, really.
Yeah, that's a good point you bring in. So my first question, I know we've been talking quite a while already.
Not nervous.
My first question is a pretty hefty one, so sorry in advance. A lot of people get mixed up with some of these terms, so I'd like to ask you, like, what is the difference between? So what's the difference between logo, brand guidelines, identity? I mean, we've spoken about some of those already. How do they differ? How would you kind of, you know, put them all into their own little boxes and say, this is this, this is this?
Okay. Well, it's quite a common thing. People think, when they say brand, they think of a logo, and a logo isn't a brand. A brand is something much, much bigger than that. So if you think about it in a hierarchy, brand is the top level. That a brand is how you feel in your mind about a certain company when you hear their brand. But when you hear about, as soon as someone says their name, you have a specific image in your mind, and that's all been created over many, many years. So, for example, if you think of Mercedes-Benz, for example, the first thing you think of is German, precision engineering, luxury, high end, and that's everything it stands for. So that's their brand. That is a brand, and that is why you can have two pairs of trainers, white trainers, no logo on it. You put a Nike logo or an Adidas logo on one of them, you can charge so much more money than you can on the pair with no logo on it. So, and that's the value of a brand, and I think that's where people sometimes don't realise that. It essentially means you can charge more and more money, and also you have a more of an enthusiastic following. People will follow the brand because they identify with its value. So the top level is brand. Then below that you have brand identity, which is an overall. So that's not the logo. The logo forms part of that. But brand identity would be colours, would be typefaces, would be imagery, would be stylizations, icons, an array of things. Every time you see it, they have to have these. It's even down to, obviously relates to the brand, the tone of voice. You know, there's a large group of things that forms the brand identity, and then within that is the brand logo device. And really what the brand logo device does is its job is to bring both the brand, the identity, all together in one pictorial. That's why it's so important, and that's why there's so much consideration goes into that, because people see that they have to then reflect the brand values, the brand identity. It has to be done in that one icon, and it is a really, really important part of the of the brand. So it's about refinement, it's about design, style, innovation, you know. So that's what it is. And then when you say brand guidelines, that's essentially a document that the designer would put together to show you that they can almost like, you know, it's the crib sheet for everything. It's showing you, you know, all the colours to use, the colour breakdowns, how things should be positioned, spacing. You know, these documents can be hundreds of pages long in some cases, depending on the size of the organisation.
We had some pretty hefty brand guidelines at BMI Airlines when I was in the loyalty department there, and it was even down to, like you mentioned about copywriting. If you're writing a sentence and it has the letter to or the word to, TWO, it would literally, like, you had to abide by those, because we even had brand guidelines police who would come around and like slap your hand with a ruler if you wrote the wrong things, because quite rightly everything has to be aligned, and when you have hundreds of people working for your company, they all need to be able to be, like you said before, singing from the same hymn sheet. They need to be well aligned so that any customer that visits any, you know, whether they're reading a blog or they're seeing a social media post, they need to be able to feel that the same person has written that, even though it isn't.
Yes, no, absolutely. And it is, again, like you're saying, it's how they write, how they talk about themselves, how they talk about the customers. They might say, we only ever use this word, we never speak to people in this way, or we, you know, but absolutely. And that's the thing, the bigger organizations will have brand managers, and they are literally, like you say, they are brand police. We will send something to them and they will say, no, this is a millimetre, and they will measure it, because that's their job. They have to keep it consistent. But there is such a benefit to that, because it keeps, like I say, it keeps everything together. And I think if people don't have, or large, I mean, we're talking large organisations here with this, but if they didn't do that, there's so many people working on it at the same time. You know, it's essential that they keep that together, because obviously at the end of the day, it means that they lose market share if they get it wrong. It can start to, you know, things can get muddled, and it doesn't take much for people to start thinking differently about something. That's why obviously PR comes into it, and you know, there's so many factors that are all interlinked. Obviously, it's a greater, you know, marketing, isn't it? But branding comes within that, and it's interlinked so, you know, close to whatever. But certainly, large organisations would be that strict, because we've had experience of it many times.
Yeah. Get the ruler out.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, well, thank you. Thanks for putting all of that into context. I think that's going to be really useful for a lot of people. Random question now. I want to put the C word on the table.
Okay.
It's Canva.
Yeah, I thought it might be. I didn't think it was anything else, Vic. It's fine.
You know me too well. So I want to kind of find out from you, what are the ways that people can use Canva alongside, you know, things like this brand, you know, having their, like you just said about, you know, the top down from the brand down to the logo. How can they use what you've done to then use something like Canva to really do that kind of day-to-day reactive marketing?
Okay, well, I think for a start, Canva, I'm not going to sit here and say all these software packages online, etc., are a bad thing, because they're not. I think for certain people they would suit. I think usually it would be better for a creative agency or designer to lead the design. So you could use Canva in conjunction with that. I mean, obviously, one thing to mention is if you're using these, you know, logo design off the shelf things online, they are very generic. So you may well find that your logo appears next to someone else's business. If you're happy with that, then that's fine. But these things, I suppose, are quite useful. So, for example, with the Touchpoints identity, we came up with that, and then obviously we gave you the colorways and the assets on their own that you could then use. And I think that's when Canva perhaps comes into play, because it means, for example, social, you know, has a very short life expectancy on social. It's 7 seconds, whatever, it's gone. Now, you wouldn't expect to hire a designer to do every single graphic for your social media. I mean, you know, obviously large organisations would, but normally it wouldn't be the case. In which case, you can take what the designer, the original concept, and everything that the design agency has come up with originally, and obviously then do it yourself in packages like Canva, etc. And you can use that to do it. Yeah, use those packages to do it yourself. But obviously, I think essentially the design and the concept has to come from, I think, from a designer, a creative agency, because there's so much more to what, you know. It's not just about, Canva's good about doing things, but I think a designer is so much more important than just the doing. It's bringing someone into your business from the beginning, almost as a consultancy role, because that's what we are. We're almost external consultants, and yes, we are designers, but it's also, we've got a lot of experience, and it's bringing the ideas in and seeing things from a different angle. So, but I think it can work. You know, in some cases, I think they can, for some businesses, not all, but some businesses, I think they can work in conjunction with, you know, designers can work in conjunction with these sort of online software packages, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And I think for me, it gives me confidence with my own social media. Or if I'm making an email graphic or something, I know that if I pop in these colours in the background, you know, it has that alignment with everything.
Yes.
And it makes my job quicker. Actually,
yes.
And I think you can actually tell the difference between brands that have considered design and those that just pop anything up. You know, it might be, you know, they might have made a graphic and they've made it beautiful, but it's not necessarily in line with their logo. It's not, you know, it's not true to who they are, because they've not had that, you know, proactive consideration, which I think this is a proactive consideration, like spending time and money and energy on making something that's about your business. Whereas I think what we are in agreement with is that Canva is more like that reactive stuff. It's just like, you know, something happens on the news and you want to get a social post out about it, about how your business can help your customers with that piece of news. And you want to make it in that, you know, in this kind of branding feel, look and feel, so that you've then it then goes out and it's a 2-second job.
That's the thing. I think it's,
especially for me, that's where it works well.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the thing. I think investing in the initial brand identity and the brand logo does help things. It does, like you say, it speeds things up. And so, you know, it is worth that investment. I mean, a lot of our clients, we do the day-to-day things with them. After we've worked with them initially, they will come back to us and they'll say, we need this for social, we need this for a marketing campaign or this advert. But again, even for us, because everything's set up, we know exactly what colour we're going to use, we know exactly the space, and all the voice, the tone of voice, the you know, everything about it we've already set up. So exactly what you said, but it does make it a lot quicker to maintain almost. That's the thing, and I think that's where the investment pays off. I think it's that initial, you know, definitely.
Yeah, it's an ongoing look and feel that continues until you need a refresh, which is where we're going on to next.
Okay, yeah.
So, a couple of questions about startups and scale-ups.
Yeah.
And how they might need your services differently at that point.
Okay.
And although I know, like when we're talking about Rubiqa, there's a plethora of different areas that you work with brands. But if we just look at logo and graphics for this would be like we can really hone in on that. So when we think about a startup, and we were talking earlier about the brief and the process. Can you just run through, like, what would make a good brief for you from a startup who might not have briefed a designer before, but they want all of this, they want this amazing look and feel, but they've not done it before and they want to know from you, what does that look like in terms of a brief? Because going back to when I briefed you, part of me was thinking, I don't want to give away too much because I want you to have, like, you know, open field to run through. But also, I need to give you everything you need to know what my values are as a business and how that's going to play a part in that. So how do you manage that? What's the best way for somebody to brief you?
We would write the brief after have a consultation with a client. But what we would say when someone comes to us, the questions we'll ask is, why are you doing this? So what is the reason? Because when you ask people that, it actually gets them to think, why? So they'll say, we need a new brand logo, or we need a new website or anything. And you'd say to them, why do you feel you need that? And by asking that question, what it tends to do is it tends to open their mind and they start thinking a bit more about it. So they'll think, and it usually comes down to, you know, it might be a new competitor on the you know, in the market that they feel threatened by, or the sales are dropping. And usually, if you keep digging with the questions, eventually you'll find a reason why. The other question we would ask is, why do you need this now? Why has it become a problem now? What's, you know, is there an event coming up, or are you relaunching, or, you know, there's a reason why they want it now. And the other thing we would then ask is, why are you asking a design agency to do this? Why are you not doing it yourself? And that again, it gets them to think what the, you know, why they're looking at doing this. And I think that is so important, because we need to have a goal. We have to work towards something, because we have to understand what is a good outcome for this. Because if we haven't got a goal if we don't know what a good result will be on this, we've got nothing to work to. So we need, and then obviously they can't, you know, they're not going to return the investment. So it's important for us to understand and know exactly what they're trying to achieve, and that you know, why they're doing it. And obviously that then relates to the brief. Now, what is useful sometimes, and I think without realising, most people have an idea of how they see their business and how they want to see it represented. They don't. You don't have to be a designer to know that. Most people say, well, I kind of like this picture, or I like this logo. So I think what's useful for us is for people to come to us with a clear, but some ideas of what they like and what they don't like. Because that's one of the other questions we would ask them is, You know, what things do you like? You know, bring some examples of things that you like and things you don't like, and that's a talking point in itself, because then we can find out why, you know, why do you like that? Why do you think that one works and why do you think that doesn't work, kind of thing. So so it's useful for us to have some guidance, but definitely not too many boundaries. And like I say, what was good working with you, Vic, is that you didn't want to give us you don't want to steer us too much. And I think that's the thing, because as we were saying earlier, it's bringing in a designer is bringing in a consultant, and you want them to look at things from a different perspective, because you're so close to your business. Everyone's so close to their own business.
Yeah.
You know, it's to get someone else thinking about it in a different way, I think is really, really beneficial. Is that making sense? Is that answering the question?
Yeah, it does. And to your point, I know I couldn't have done this. This is an expert needs to do this. Do you know? And I recognise that. And so I think, and I guess it's when somebody comes to me and asks my opinion on something, it's sometimes good to have not too much information, because then you're delving and asking the right questions rather than being given information that might hinder that creative process.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I think that's it. It just gives you the opportunity to think a little bit more deeply about it yourself, and then you think, well, why are we doing that? Why do we need this now? And what's the reason? Why? You know? And there's always you have to keep asking that question, because we'll get there eventually. Because they'll come to us and they'll say, we need a new website, or whatever, and but why do you need a new website? Oh, because of this. But what? Yeah, you know, and you keep going, and eventually we'll get to the reason. And that is so useful. So, right, okay, so now we know why we're having this conversation, you know.
And I think that must have been really like stealth, because I don't remember you specifically asking those, but yeah, I know you would have done. But it's almost like, because you were asking, I was too busy thinking about my answer to be thinking, like, it was 2 years ago, so I don't remember specifically. But do you know what I mean? Like, you would have picked all of that out to me to find out what it is, what's the heart of what's going on here, and how does what you do make a difference to that. So yeah, no, that's good. I like finding out these little insights about all the magic that you did when I wasn't even realising. And how can people get in touch with you?
Well, our website is rubiqa.co.uk. For some reason, we chose a word that was really difficult to spell, so I'll spell it out to you as rubiqa.co.uk. We have long-standing relationships with our clients over many years. They do come back to us, which I think is good. We work with people for years and years and years. Yeah. And it's obviously, so creative agency, so web design, graphic design, brand design, animation, various, email marketing. So visit the website, and that's how you can get in touch. That's my plug.
No, it's good to add on the details, because I'm sure if there's people watching that think, oh gosh, I just really need to get in touch with this guy, because he talks sense, and he makes it seem really like an easy process for me to just go, this is my business, help me with my print, help me with my web, help me with my design and everything. You can be a one-stop shop for a lot of businesses, can't you, where they can just come and have, just brain dump everything and go, this is what we're thinking for the next financial year, what can you do? Because
definitely. I think it's there'll be times when we work with certain clients we feel are a good fit to us. If someone came to us and we didn't think we could help them, we thought we're probably not best suited to their particular business, we would turn the work down. We wouldn't try, and it's because really with something like this, it's about everyone's got to be happy with the outcome, and and I think that's so important. We wouldn't want to work with. We wouldn't want someone to be unhappy with what we've done. So we would rather be quite selective who we work with. We are very busy. We're always busy studios. So it's working with the right type of personality and the right type of business, I think.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for being my interviewee. I love it. I think it's solidified a lot for me, and I'm sure it's helped people to understand a lot more about the difference in logos and brand, and some ideas about what they might do if they're at startup or scale up stage. But thank you so much.
Excellent. You're welcome.